Hi, I'm Eva,
And I'm Jamie, and we've got Jamie Skeen on sound.
and we're reading ambassadors at Brecon High School. Our remit is to support our school library in promoting the benefits of reading, i.e., improved grades, well-being, ability to empathise with others, to our peers, family, and local community. We try to encourage greater depth of reading, i.e., more challenging reads, and more diverse reading, i.e., stories that feature people of colour, neurodivergent characters/authors, and the LGBTQ plus community, etc.
Today, our VIP, special guest is Angus Council's Head of Education, Miss Kelly McIntosh. And we're going to chat about books, comics, and our shared love for reading. This interview is for the library's Prêt Radio podcast, which you can find on YouTube.
So, our first question for you, Miss McIntosh, is it is a privilege to have our head of Miss McIntosh. It is a privilege to have our head of service with us. Thank you very much for coming into Brecon High School. Would you describe yourself as a big reader? And if yes, have you always been since you were a girl?
Yeah, it's great to be here, by the way. Thanks for inviting
Thanks.
me. Yes, I would. I remember loving reading from a very, very young age. Being able to sit in a quiet corner with a book was what I would be looking to do. I lived in a very, very lively household. I'm the youngest of 5 children.
Wow.
So there were 7 of us living in quite a small house, and finding a quiet space was not easy, always. My brothers, it's 2 brothers above me, very noisy, really not into reading. So actually managing to get away and get a quiet space was quite difficult. I read every night in my bed, and I still do. When I'm not at work, I usually have a book with me just in case I get a chance to sit down and read. I'm sure you guys do that too. You've always got a book in your bag. That's me. And when I was young, it was Enid Blyton books. I could always remember, I think my mum must have got books from one of our neighbours because they were really beautiful hardback books. And I had them all in a bookcase, and I read them over and over and over again. So like The Wishing Chair, The Magic Faraway Tree. I don't know if you read those as children, but
I know
for
of
me,
them, yeah.
Enid Blyton was who you read when you were young. There wasn't any Julia Donaldson or J.K. Rowling, obviously, because it was a million years ago. But yeah, so when I was a child and still now, I would say.
Yeah.
Lovely.
What is your favourite book or comic of all time? Why do you like it so much?
So that's interesting. It's hard to pick one, eh? I would say my favourite book of all time is actually a children's book called Smile, Crocodile, Smile. It's by somebody called Anne, and I'll say this wrong because I think it's maybe a Dutch surname, but Vrombouw, maybe. And I like it actually so much because it's the first book that my daughter read to me.
Yeah.
So, I was really keen that my daughter loved reading, and she did. So she was actually only 4 and she hadn't even started school yet. And of course, she couldn't actually read. But she had memorised, because we had read the book together so much that she had memorised what all of the words were. And it was a sunny day, I can remember, and I was in the back garden and she brought it out and she says, "I'm going to read you this." And it was word perfect. And I remember thinking, well, she can read. And then thought, no, don't be so stupid, of course she can't read. But, obviously young children sometimes learn by memorising the shapes of what the words look like. So that's what had happened. But then even when I'm saying that, there were other books that I read to Eve when she was young, that's my daughter, and some of the books I still know off by heart because we read them so often. So it got to the stage that even if we were in the car and Eve was in the back in her car seat, I could tell her the story from the book without the book. And she knows, and still now, Eve's in her 20s now. So Georgina the Giraffe from the 64 Zoo Lane series, that's probably missed you guys out. It was a cartoon. If you put that into YouTube, you'll love it. 64 Zoo Lane. It's Lucy in the zoo with Nelson the elephant. Yeah, so I know a few of those stories.
I love Giraffe. Yeah,
I love that
Georgina
one.
the Giraffe.
I looked it up a while ago. I like it.
And then, of course, again, Dr. Seuss books. Yes. So 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish. So Eve would still know some of the rhymes. So it was a different rhyme on every page. It wasn't actually a story.
Yeah.
So still some of them. There was one of them that really frightened her, and even in her 20s, I'll say that time, she goes, "Oh no, I don't like that one." So really, maybe strangely, probably that first children's book because of what it meant to me and Eve, if you like.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. We're going to take a short pause just now. Do you have a favourite author? Why? Is it the storytelling, all the characters, or subject matter that appeals? And then what about a favourite comic / author/artist.
Okay, so I think I read like a wide range of things, but if I had to choose one author, I think it would be a lady called Anne Patchett. So I don't
Okay.
know if you've heard of her. So the first book I read of hers was called Bel Canto, and I can't even remember why I bought it. I probably read about it in the Sunday Times, and in like the Sunday Times magazine, and it was such a beautiful book to read. And actually, the plot doesn't make it sound like a beautiful book, because it's about a world-renowned opera singer who's coming to the end of her career, if you like, and being paid to give a performance in a really small venue, in my head, somewhere in South America. I might have got that wrong because it's a long time ago I read it. But when she's there, there's like a little terrorist group who takes over the venue. So, and they're all held hostage.
Right.
But it's actually a love story, an unexpected love story, because there's a Japanese man there who's watching the thing on a business trip, and he falls in love with the opera singer. So
Kind of like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds a bit strange.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
But-
actually, when I had read that book, I gave it to Vicky Gardner, who I know that you
Oh,
have
right, yeah.
interviewed, and she was the same. She was like, wow, what a beautiful book. So I've read a lot of Anne Patchett's books, and they're all
Okay.
really different. And when you said why, I think it's her storytelling is amazing, because the stories seem like quite a small story.
Okay, yeah.
A little house with a small group of people and a hostage thing. But the character, she makes the characters so big and come to life.
Right,
Like,
okay.
you know when you read a book and you've drawn a picture of the person in your head,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
and then that book gets made into a film and you watch it on the telly and you think, that's
Yes. It's
That's
so
not the right
annoying. It's very annoying.
not them. Her books
yeah.
are like that. So they're all really different. She's published loads of books, but they're not similar in any way when you read them.
That's
They're
quite-
really
that's quite
different.
good, yeah.
I could really recommend her. Yeah, so it is about how she builds the characters. And then the thing about comics, obviously I am from Dundee, probably tell that by my accent. So when I was younger, it was all about the Beano and the Dandy.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and then a bit
Very
older,
good.
the Jackie, because they were
Okay.
all published. Jackie was like a
Yeah.
girls' magazine,
Oh, right,
teenage
okay.
magazine at that time.
That's cool.
All published by DC Thompson in Dundee.
Mm-hmm.
But really for me, when Eve was growing up, my daughter is massively into like anime and manga.
Oh, right, okay.
Oh, I love that.
So
Yeah.
from about 8 years old, I would say, so much so that I took her to Japan when she was 16, because it was all Studio Ghibli and
That's amazing.
yeah, see, like I could
Jamie's dying.
because it like. But when
Yeah.
Eve's 23 now, so then it was quite difficult to get a hold of merchandise, and
Right, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
you could get the DVDs quite easily. So
Yeah.
yeah, so not just the comics of the books, but often the films and the cartoons
Yeah.
on
They're-
TV.
They're
and
always really
Very-
good.
it's
and I think the
very
great
good.
thing about that is you'll know yourself, and I don't know if you have it here, but some of our schools do media studies courses. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
make
do
sure
actually
all
have it a bit
young
here.
people
yeah.
who wouldn't necessarily sit down and read a whole book would do storyboarding and build their stories that way, like drawing
Yeah.
characters. And I think anime and manga is great for that. So
Yes.
They're
young
really
people
good,
who maybe
yeah.
wouldn't normally be interested in reading,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't take much to read, like a volume of Naruto or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, and I think it's, and especially for young boys, sometimes you can get them in that way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But in my house, that's
Yeah.
still a big thing.
That's
I would
quite
say.
cool, yeah.
Love them. Can
Awesome.
I've loved them. I've got loads of favourites, and I love quite a lot of romance with my books. But yeah, I have how many series at home? I think I'm quite- well, I don't have all of them. You see, because I read
Yeah.
half of what, like, part of one series here from the comics that are in the library, and then part of them on Sora, a reading app that the school had, and the rest of them I bought by myself. So have like 30 and upwards, and it's such a random number to start from. But it's My Hero Academia, and I absolutely love them. They're so good.
Yeah.
But I just haven't. Whenever I've went to Waterstones to buy them,
They've
they're
never got the right
there.
number.
They're never there. The ones that I need.
Yeah.
And my friends, I was like, "Oh hey, there's 37." We're like, "Do you want me to get it from you?" I was like, "That's the wrong one. You have to buy them order."
Yeah, and it's not easy to get them on Amazon still.
It's not. and-
Forbidden Planet maybe in Glasgow, because they
Right,
sometimes
okay.
have. But again, usually the early numbers are never there.
Yeah.
Because people come in and buy one
Yeah.
and two and then go into a different one.
Yeah.
And I actually went into Eve's room because it's just full of books. And it was fruits baskets. I don't know if you've ever read that.
I think I've heard of that one.
So
Yeah.
there's quite a few of those. We
Yeah.
actually gave all of our Naruto stuff away. We gave our books away years ago and never think, oh, should we have done that? We actually gave them to the previous director of education because her son was getting into it.
Yeah.
And I brought all the books in and
cool.
gave them away. But yeah, we've got,
A lot of money to save if you hand them over to someone
absolutely,
else.
because they're very expensive. But you even get, when you think about young boys that are at school here and maybe don't like reading, you get Pokemon
Yeah.
like graphic novels.
Yeah.
So things that would draw
Yeah,
younger,
that's true,
younger
yeah.
readers
Yeah.
in.
Yeah,
My
I really
Hero
like
Academia.
manga and comics and graphic novels. Because when I was younger, I struggled. I know I struggled with reading, and it wasn't anything. It's just I didn't read very much, and I wasn't really into that sort of thing when I was younger. And then I get into high school, and I see there's loads of comics. So I start with the graphic novels because I think, oh, this one looks cool, and I always love my fantasy.
Yeah.
And I thought, ooh, romance. I don't really like romance, but then I figured out, oh, I love a good romance. It's so good. And so I got into comics and then manga, and I started. I can't remember what when I started. I started with Demon Slayer. I
Okay.
really liked Demon Slayer, and it was so good, and I read it all, and I was so happy with it. At one point, in S1, I brought 14 of the books home with me for the Easter holidays. I read all of them.
All of them.
It was insane. I just loved it so much, and I've just slowly started building up my reading, and I've recently read 2 chapter books, and I was really proud of myself for it, because I managed to finish them both. Same series, managed to finish them both in 3 weeks, and I was really happy with myself because I'd never been able to do that. I never had that kind of grasp on a
Yeah.
chapter book as I did with my manga, because I've got loads of other ones at home. Well, not loads, I've got some, but I've got like Promised Neverland, Kaiju number 8, and Hello World, and they're just really good, and I love them because they're so short, but then you finish them so quickly.
Well, I was about to say, as a parent, so you buy it in Waterson's
Yeah.
on Saturday, and on Saturday afternoon, it's like, can we get the next one?
Yeah.
You know,
And
you've
it's
just
like,
spent £14
you
on
finish-
that one.
Yeah. You finish them all, and you finish them, and every book, that's one thing I like, every book ends on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And they have the manga always have the perfect mixture of information dumps and like action scenes, and that, like another one, Attack on Titan, haven't actually read all of it, but it's really good. But the thing is, every episode there's like a whole new chapter book of information that's dumped on you, and you've got to remember it all, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. And when you see different bits, and it's just always so good, because I just love books like that. It's just so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally get it. Absolutely get it. And the
Yeah.
movies too, so, you know, I think most people nowadays, even though Studio Ghibli used to be a bit niche, they'll have seen My Neighbour Totoro.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
You
most
know,
people have seen
Ponyo.
them, yeah.
Oh,
They'll-
Ponyo, yeah.
They'll have seen stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes what they don't get is they don't get the books right. So Howl's Moving Castle,
Right.
don't know if you've seen that movie.
I have.
You
Have,
need to
yeah.
see, yeah. So I bought Eve the book of that, the chapter
Oh,
book of
yeah.
that, but it wasn't good to read. You know what I mean? I
That's
think it almost
interesting.
needs to be the comic book style for
Yeah.
these
Okay.
sort
Yeah.
of movies. The movie you need to
Interesting.
watch is The Girl Who Leapt Through Time.
Oh, I haven't watched that one.
Yeah, get that. I've probably got it on DVD in the house. I'll remember to bring it up
Brilliant.
here. We can all watch it one
Yeah.
afternoon. How good would that be?
Yeah. I
yeah.
really like them. I love the Studio Ghibli movies. I think I've probably watched nearly all of them,
Yeah.
and they're just so good. And you think these are probably for children, but you're like, when you watch it as a kid, you just think it's a fun movie. Watch when you're older, you realize, oh, it's so deep.
Yeah,
it's like there's
absolutely.
so much in that. Like I watched one, When the Wind Rises, and it was historical, and it was about a Japanese airplane mechanic, and it's about him making this really good plane, and he goes to Germany and all that, falls in love, and then lots of stuff happens, but it's all about his building that really good plane, and it's just like he's had this dream since he was younger, and it's just so good,
And a metaphor for his life, because then he goes to Germany and falls in love, and
yeah,
he's
it's
built
like-
the plane, but he's building his life, I guess.
Yeah,
I've not seen that.
yeah,
Grave of the Fireflies is another one, and it's
I need
about
to watch that one.
two wee boys who are orphaned in the war, I think, and they're living at the edge of a
yeah.
riverbank. I've got these
Yeah,
movies.
one of the teachers here, she's a history teacher with Shannon, and she loves anime and that sort of stuff, and she's always suggesting good ones, and she suggested Grave of the Fireflies, and I do actually want to watch it. It seems I just love a movie, and I've rewatched some of them, and I've been rewatching them because they're so good, and I watched one last night. A Whisker Away, I think it was. That one, I've got to agree, it was really weird.
Is it Spirited Away? Did you watch
No,
Spirited Away?
I've
No,
watched
it's a
that
different
one. I have
yeah.
watched that one. It's really good. But A Whisker Away, and it's about this girl, and she's masked to turn into a cat to get used. It's so
Oh,
weird.
Okay.
But
That's where the whisker comes in.
yeah, and it's just so strange. But they end up falling in love in the end, so it ends up all happy. But it's just a really weird movie.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And I think what we need to make sure is that, you know, regardless of what people read, because there used to be quite a snobbery about reading, eh? You know, I'm reading Charles Dickens.
Yes.